Finally.
Both.
Slip out. All right. First and foremost, Rimzy, happy Father's Day. Me and Nattoo. We not jump off of the girl in truck yet, but it's all good.
Big and bold on the girl then.
Yeah, man, it's okay. One day.
I appreciate it.
Yes, now for now.
I have a firm grip on the back of the truck, the boy.
Firm grip on
Shout out to Rimzy, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, man.
yes, man. So,
Time we are shoot for.
long time we are shoot, not true. All right, so this topic, quick and fast. No questions about it. When a man says he wants peace, what does he mean? Does he mean he wants silence? What does he mean? I'm not gonna preface it by a lot. When you hear that Rimzy, when you hear that Nattoo, waiting. When a man say he want peace, not when a man. When you say you want peace, Nattoo, what you mean?
I mean, for me, it's.
You're married? No. Watch your words carefully.
You see me? So I have to tread a bit carefully here. But for me, completely honest, when I say I want peace, it is more so about creating a space that is not necessarily conflict free, but a space that is extremely gracious, a space that is extremely graceful. So by that I mean, it doesn't mean that there won't be things to address. It doesn't mean that we won't have issues. You know, it just simply means that when those issues arise, we deal with them in a way that is, night and day from how we would typically approach conflict in the outside world. I don't like that having conflict almost automatically means that we get in a shouting match, that we just resort to our bad habits when it comes down to navigating conflict. So for peace in that regard is about, all right, what do we agree on is the least toxic approach to problem solving and conflict management. And if in the absence of conflict, then peace also means being aware enough or being conscious enough to steer clear of things that might stir up conflict. And it's not like we're trying to be avoidant, but it's about being extremely mindful of how you communicate things, and being aware of what you communicate and how likely it is to result in an outcome that leaves both of you dysregulated and feeling distant than you initially were. So yeah, that's it for me.
Some things stood out there. So by making a mental note of it, and I want to circle back to it. But Rimzy, peace. When you say you want peace, what do you mean?
You know, when I saw the prompt, and I was thinking about it myself, because I'm like, all right. When it said men, I kind of have to narrow it down to myself, because then would have everybody definition of peace is different. So when I say I want peace, what does it mean to me? I wouldn't say it means no conflict, similar to what Nattoo said, but for me it has a lot of silences in my peace with my personality. That's the thing. So for me, a lot of people don't really know this, but I'm an introvert. So I'm at peace when I'm by myself. I'm at peace in quiet, in calm, where my thoughts can just flow. Within that peace, there are certain people that I allow within that sphere of my peace who I feel will make it peaceful. For me, it's, as I say, it involves some form of silence within it. In my peace, I really don't want no form of contention. I really don't want to talk to you. I really don't want to have no arguments. I don't want to have no form of fuss. But then, on the flip side, that's probably not the best kind of peace for a relationship. Not saying that this is a conversation about relationship, but it can get to that. But yeah, for me, peace and silence I think they walk hand in hand. Because it's not like I don't want to deal with issues within my peace. Because actually, when I'm in peace is when I can process and deal with my issues the best. Because my thoughts and my creativity and my problem solving skills come out within that period, or within that peace, or within that silence. So for me, when I just thinking about it, and I'm trying to think about when I'm most at peace, When I get home after a long day, I come in my office and I lock my doors and I'm just here and I'm just zen. I don't want to hear nobody. Sometimes I don't want my phone ring. I'm just at peace. And then again, there are different stages to my peace. You understand? So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Makes sense.
For me, peace is stillness. That's the word I think about when I think about peace. Stillness of mind, stillness of self. We always moving, we're always doing something. So for me, peace is peace. Peace is something internal. Peace is when I'm able to stop. And when I say stop, I mean my mind isn't trying to process anything at that moment. My mind isn't trying to solve anything at that moment. My body isn't in the process of doing something or going somewhere. My body is, it just is it. I am existing. That's what peace is to me. And because I wanted to circle back to something Nattoo said, because when we say it's about creating, I wanted to ask, like, who is responsible for the creation of that space, right? Because in that place of stillness is in other words, for us to be, is our piece a co-created space, or is our piece a space that we create, whereas someone on the outside can destroy that space that we create? If you understand what I said. Because when we say we want peace, what is stopping us from getting that peace? Is that something that requires someone else to help us create that peace? And we're going to get to the conversation about that coming up, typically in a relational sense. But what want to think about that?
I think
That's actually what I was thinking about, because typically I think we can safely assume that people in general want peace.
Mm-hmm.
I think people would prefer to be in a state of peace. So typically when we say we want peace, I feel like there's an element of it that to some extent is a bit weaponized, and it sort of positions women as being like the arbiters of things that are disruptive to peace. And essentially we end up in a space where when we say we want peace, the implication is that our partners, which is typically how we use that phrase, our partners are typically the ones who either one possess the potential to disrupt that peace, or one bears the responsibility of disrupting peace. And that is not necessarily, I don't feel like, an objectively honest view of what peace is. Because if we agree that there's an element to it, like, for example, in Rimzy's perspective, if there's an element of isolation to peace, and we permit some person to enter that space of isolation, we are essentially saying, without your involvement in this space, I would be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
By inviting you or giving you the privilege of entering this space, you now possess the potential to disrupt this space. So I am inherently at peace when I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a case that we are at peace, or is it so much that we view peace as being unchallenged? When we're in a state of not being challenged, is that peace? Or are we avoiding?
All right, so you remember again when I started my conversation, I said I think we have to get to understand, because a key point is all three of us have different interpretation of what peace is to us.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So let me touch back on that and then go back there where I'm saying, like, one has to know what is peace to them.
For them.
Because peace for you, Nattoo, could be going home to your new wife and chilling. Right? Peace to Stefan could be walking his dog or driving the Jeep somewhere else. And peace to me could be locking up in my room, turning off the lights and just being in complete isolation. So in each of those settings, we can allow somebody in to disrupt it. But ultimately, I think we still control the narrative of, all right, you start disrupting it, leave.
So do you think you create it? So do you think we as men have to create our peace?
Yes,
or do we?
I think
require someone
Alright.
else to
I
create
think
that
we
peace?
as men, I think we as men can create our peace, but it's not a full-on peace because we would love to know that if we're going to talk in a relation setting, right? We would love to know that whoever we are with can also add to that peace because they've
Or
known
respect
us
it at least?
or
and
respect it. You
and
understand? So they can contribute to it, respect it because of the fact that they know that okay, this is where he is at that time. Let me give him that. So I feel that there's an element of it where yes, we're good by ourselves within that space, but then there's an element where we also want that additional, I would say that other half to make it a whole. However, that not being there doesn't mean that it affects us tremendously. It's just that we would love to give that other part total control as well.
I have
Or some level.
I have a question. So, how does somebody else add to our peace? Because I feel like perhaps it might be necessary to sort of draw a distinction between if the consensus is that the peace that we have, because based on how the topic is phrased, to say you want something, it implies that it is not something that you already possess.
Facts.
To want, you
Yes.
can't want the shirt
Yeah.
where you have on, you have it.
Yes.
So, is it that we are saying that the peace that we have, we would prefer for it not to be disrupted? So when we say we want peace, what we're actually saying is, I have this state of being that is without conflict, that is harmonious, that is calm,
Le-
and I need you not to disrupt this. Is that what we're saying?
No. Let's not bullshit.
Because we can be disruptive in our own peace as well.
Let me cut straight to the chase. The reality is, when we talk about peace in the relational sense, in the mainstream context, many relationships are sold and created as toxic spaces. So when a man says he wants peace, the translation, I'm talking in the contemporary sense, because yes, every man has their own definition. But in the contemporary sense, when a man says he wants peace, he wants someone who is not constantly critical, not constantly tearing him down, not constantly attacking him, not constantly pointing out his flaws. Nobody in their right mind would want that, right? And if we had to mansplain it a little bit, that's typically what a man means. Not that he doesn't want challenge, and I'm not saying some men who say when some men who say they want peace, and what they really mean, they don't want to be challenged. I want a woman who can challenge me, who can push and encourage me, right? But I don't want a woman who is going to tear me down every single time I try to do something or I suggest something.
I want to get both your perspective on this. The idea of wanting peace, and as Steph pointed out just now, not wanting someone to be picking at your every move, not wanting someone to be tearing you down. Are these things unique to the state of peace? By that I mean, are there men who knowingly and willingly engage in relationships where that is the dynamic? Because if it is that, sometimes I feel like there can be the call for peace can sometimes be a bit of a dog whistle for just let me have my cake and eat it, just leave me alone, go ahead.
Our peace.
So yes, there are those, but I don't want the conversation to be taken over by the ones who, by the toxic framing of I want peace, right? Because that silences the voices of the men who actually want peace and they don't know how to ask for it, right?
Yeah.
Especially when they feel like that's the best you can get, Gillette, the best a man can get. So a lot of men settle in the idea that the best they can get is a woman where do certain things for you, but she a go chat, she a go pressure you, and it just becomes a talking point in the barbershop and the bar. Because you don't feel like you can do any better. You just accept it as so it go,
Yeah, that's why I asked, because I know that there are it's more so in a contemporary sense, a certain relationship dynamic that is almost praised for. They won't say it's for the absence of peace, but relationships that are typically built on like a foundation of conflict, like, oh, this is
Yeah.
what relationship is,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I'm supposed to be, and I don't know, you might typically come across it on certain videos where if you check the comments, you find people saying, oh, you annoy that man, and that's why he loves you so much. Like, this is how you know it's love. You annoy him. You curse, and you give each other the cold shoulder and stuff, and people
Yeah,
saw
man.
that people
Yeah, man.
people
Yeah.
elevate
Yeah.
those things
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
oh yeah, this, so when you ask for peace, you are almost being framed in the sense that you do not want a real relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked the question, because I feel like that distinction is very important for men who ask for peace and who are bold enough to ask for it. There is this overwhelming thing that, yo, you're not ready for a relationship, because where you ask for, when
You
you
don't want to make
hear,
no noise. You want to be quiet. You want to
yeah,
be on the wayside.
you
You want to
don't
be
want
shut
us
up.
to be who we are. So are you
Yeah.
saying to me that who you are is inherently not peaceful?
But quiet not bad sometimes. If it is that, and I don't know about you, I've been in relationships like this where 9 out of 10 things that the person utters is something that is negative, something that doesn't pour any positivity into you.
Yeah.
You telling me that I should have a problem with you being quiet? If quiet is the alternative to your negativity, I want you to be quiet.
I want you to be quiet. Yeah, because if everything
Yep.
you can magnify the negative, that's not my. Right?
That's not peace.
That's not peace. So in that sense, just if every 2 days you're going to come to me with something that I've done, something that I'm not doing, whereas you can't ever come to me with something that I'm doing, something that is uplifting, something that is building me up.
Yeah.
That is in sense that is peace for me.
Right.
If I have somebody else that is in my life and they're building in or feeding
Right.
me and pumping positivity to me, that is
and it does
peace.
and it doesn't mean that it's always positivity, because it's not, you don't want a cheerleader.
It could be challenging. Yeah.
Right, but you
Taking
also don't.
accountability for something.
Right, exactly. But if it is that it's only or predominantly negative, then in that case, peace for me is the absence of war. Right, it's the absence of war. If that's the best I can get,
Which means the absence of that person. Funny enough, you said something, and I cut you. I remember I was having a conversation with somebody, and he said to me, he gave me a call, and he said, bro, something not right. And I said, what you mean? He said, I love my girl. I love my partner. However, when she's here, I can't stand her. The minute she leaves, I'm at peace.
Wait, me never hear that, Rimzy.
Okay, when she's here, when she's with him, he can't stand her. When she leaves, he's at peace. There's no fuss, there's no fight, there's no arguments. He has a better relationship with her when she's away than when she's physically present there. To a point where he doesn't even miss her. Physical presence. However, he deeply loves this person, but every time they're in the same space, it's toxic. It's cantankerous. It's aggressive. He doesn't want to go home. And I'm like,
that's so much to unpack.
That's a tough one. That one kind of bigger now.
I don't want to. I don't want to read into it too much, but there's a whole lot there to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Said, no, he's at peace. And I'm like, interesting.
I don't unpack there.
Yeah, because I don't think that person is at peace when the significant other leaves, because.
But I'll tell you, I don't think that's uncommon either.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. There's a lot of emotional angst in a lot of relationships, and we have to be honest. A lot of men are in love with the idea of a woman and not the actual woman.
That right? Yeah.
So you get
of a relationship.
There we go.
I don't think it's the woman. It's probably the relationship, because
it's probably
If you ask probably a lot of men to be truthfully honest in a surrounding of men, they'll probably tell you the truth, which is they probably don't want what they're in.
Yeah. Real talk. Real talk. The idea of the relationship and not the actual relationship. So in that context, when the man say one piece, is kind of like what you said earlier, Nattoo. It's kind of like a dog whistle. I want this, but I don't really want all of it. I want just part of it, and you just go on your way and you do your thing, right?
So is there a part of us where is there a part to us where we create this avoidance? And I guess that's probably where the silence part come in. Where we create this avoidance and this lack of, I want to say we don't want to take accountability for anything, and we don't want to hear anything, yes, let's say negative. We don't want to hear anything negative or anything that we're not doing. So this is the flip side, because they say you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. There's no way, so I can know what I'm doing if somebody else doesn't really tell me. So if that person is somebody that I'm involved with, and they come to me with things, and I'm looking at it like every day, stress me out,
Right.
We also have to understand that women have a different way of looking at things, where they we want to avoid, they want to
address.
So we take on that addressing. If it becomes too constant, we want to avoid it to a point where the nagging become annoying. Just leave me alone. You're not my peace anymore. So the flip side, I'm curious about that flip side, because it's something I'm actually asking myself too. As I said, when we put this topic in the group today, I was like, this one is actually very deep, because it takes a lot of introspection as well.
Yeah.
Because for me, sometimes I'm wondering, is my silence avoiding a conversation that I really need to have, but that silence is only temporary, because it doesn't solve anything. Whereas addressing that conversation could actually lead me to the peace.
Yeah, because that means it doesn't come back up.
Exactly.
It doesn't come back up,
That's actually something I wanted to touch on earlier, because there is I feel like the piece that is common, which for me I wouldn't necessarily accept it as the truest version of peace, is the peace that people find by avoiding issues that need to be addressed. That is a form of peace, and it's a very common form. But there is a genuine, much more enduring peace, I believe, that comes when the peace that you have is not as a result of you avoiding issues, but as a result of there not being issues to address, because you've already addressed them. And I also find something a bit interesting. It's a bit of a broad brushing, but it's interesting that men who are, we are typically seen as the ones who, so aggression and those kind of things are the spaces in which we operate. War, you send men to war. Men are typically, the fierce particular and everything. But here we are now in this contemporary age saying, we want peace. Like the dynamic there of us being the people, of men typically being the ones who, just on like a much broader scale, you invade other countries at other people's behest, you do all these sort of things, and then you come home and it's like, I want peace.
You want to know why? And it kind of goes back to what Rimzy said. We are hopelessly ill-equipped to deal with emotional conflict, and that starts from a very young age. We have been trained, using a war analogy, to fix, to fight, to protect, to confront. None of those things require conversation. None of those things require introspection. And